Welcome in On Deck. I'm Tyler Redmond. As always, do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to this channel if you're new, and of course, hit the bell for notifications so that you know every time I go live, every time I drop something new, and of course, every time the Braves are up to something. And the Braves have been up to a lot lately, and we need to talk about it. Of course, they made a lot of roster moves over the past few days, but the main thing I want to talk about right now is the pitching staff. Of course, we'll go a little bit more in depth tonight during the live show, 8 p.m. Make sure you're there. But we want to talk about the pitching staff right now, specifically in the month of April. Of course, opening day, April 1st, and from then on, there's a lot to be discovered throughout the month of April. The biggest news out of the past few days in terms of roster moves, being decided for opening day, was that Bryse Wilson was optioned. Of course, Bryse Wilson, we all know what seemed like he was going to be the number 5 starter now that Mike Soroka is out, and Kyle Wright was optioned the day before. Everybody assumed that's what was going to happen. Heck, I assumed that's what was going to happen. So it's not a bad idea by any means. Bryse Wilson had a great spring. It sort of confused me when it first happened, but I decided to take a deeper dive. And what I did for you guys to make it a little bit simpler, I had a bunch of spreadsheets and things laid out. I decided I'm going to lay it all out for you guys in a separate thing, in a makeshift calendar, and this is it right here. It's the month of April. Of course, on April 1st is opening day. That's we already know, Max Fried's day. April 2nd, there is no game, and that no game is important here because there's a few of these throughout, and that's what's going to help the Braves do this makeshift situation with the bullpen games. And you see a couple days throughout the calendar here where I put bullpen. April 7th is the first one, and that's sort of the first predicted one. That's the first one where people are going to be on short rest. Namely, Charlie Morton right there would be on short rest that day. But then you see April 8th, they have no game. And then the next day, Charlie Morton picks right back up, and he'll have an extra day of rest with 6. So basically what I put together for you is kind of a key. Obviously, you see the pitchers' names, you see the dates, but the red numbers are how many days of rest. And, of course, I have a star right there we're going to talk about in a minute. But the thing that's important to realize here is that this is more than possible. And originally, I was skeptical of the bullpen game. We've seen it in action. It's not like it's a newfound thing for the Braves. But I was a bit skeptical in terms of long-term, in terms of we don't know how long Soroka is going to be gone. And ultimately, why not give Bryse Wilson that shot, right? I don't think Bryse Wilson is out of the question just yet. Because if you look at this table, you got your bullpen games here and there. That's probably going to be Huascar Noah, right? And then you get to the 13th. Now, it's rumored that Soroka could be back before the 13th, but if you're the Braves fan, you don't want them to rush him back, right? That's why that star is there. I think that depending on how well the first bullpen game goes, or depending on just arms and the ability to save the bullpen, whatever the situation may be, you may see Bryse Wilson or Kyle Wright pulled up, and I would lean towards Bryse Wilson here, obviously. So that's what that star is there for. So again, the 13th, I think a multitude of things could happen. Either Soroka comes back. Again, that's a rumor. I don't think there's a lot of truth to that, but ultimately I think something's going to happen there. I would expect Bryse Wilson to have a start that day. I would be surprised if he didn't have a start that day. Now, we've known that if Bryse Wilson got that opportunity, it was likely going to be taken away as soon as Soroka gets back. So if you look throughout, those bullpen games, what those do, whether it be Kyle Wright, Bryse Wilson, Huascar Noah, Sean Newcomb, it doesn't matter. What those do is it gives the other 4 guys a lot of flexibility. Look towards, and this is all a template, right? This is not necessarily how it's going to go exactly. But look towards the end of the month, 23rd, 24th, 25th, right? 23rd and 24th. You got 7 days of rest for those guys. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have 7 days of rest. Of course, they want to keep their routine as close as possible. But that shows you how much flexibility these bullpen games are going to give without carrying an extra pitcher. So, to me, I think what's really interesting here is Mark Bowman came out and said Soroka's going to be here between the 23rd and 30th, right? Somewhere around that line, and that's more so where I think he's going to be based on what we know, based on who's saying what. I think, of course, the 13th is possible, but there's no reason to rush it, and this is exactly why right here. And it's also no reason to throw Bryse Wilson into a situation and then drag him right back out. That's why they're doing what they're doing, I think. I still think Bryse Wilson is going to have an opportunity before the end of the season. It could be the 13th. but it could be later on. It could be in a postseason. We saw that last year. If somebody was to get hurt, I think that would be his case. But if he gets brought up on the 13th, I don't see him going back down. I think he starts there, and then maybe he's a spot starter from then on, or a valuable piece of the bullpen in long relief, right? So similar to what Huascar Ynoa's doing right now, right? Huascar Ynoa's more than likely going to start on the 7th unless it's Sean Newcomb. Huascar Ynoa's more than likely going to have that. He's predicted, David O'Brien's predicted him to start that game. I would probably say the same thing. I see no reason as to why he wouldn't. He struggled the other day, we all know, but that aside, he's been that guy for the past, last season he was that guy when they needed a spot start. It was Huascar Ynoa as the quote-unquote opener. But again, I still think Bryse Wilson may start on the 13th, possibly. And if he doesn't, then I think we see him and Kyle Wright be brought up at some point throughout the season. It wouldn't surprise me necessarily if Kyle Wright was to stay in the minors this year, just because we've seen how much he struggled over the past couple of seasons adapting to the majors. They might just want to give him a little bit more confidence. And not to mention, Bryse Wilson, right, has been brought up and down over the past few years, and I don't know how many options he has necessarily, but the Braves probably don't want him to get up and struggle and then go back down, and get up and struggle, go back down, similar to what Kyle Wright's been doing lately, because Bryse Wilson's already been through that. I think Bryse Wilson's finally found his groove. I think he's got a new attitude. I think he's ready to go for the major leagues, but I don't mind them keeping him down for the time being, because right now our pitching is fine. Max Fried, of course, we all know what he's going to be. Hopefully, he's going to continue his success from last year. Charlie Morton had a 0 ERA to finish spring training, so I'm not really worried about him at all. Ian Anderson has shown plenty of talent. Drew Smiley, I still have faith in. He's been excellent towards the end of spring training. And then, of course, the bullpen. Huascar Ynoa's very talented, and you know what? I think Bryse Wilson and Kyle Wright are going to be those guys. The other thing about Bryse Wilson and Kyle Wright, those guys are not here for this year. Those guys are here for next year, the year after. They're going to be here a long time. The Braves want to make sure they're good to go. They want to make sure they got the valuable minor league experience that they need. So with that said, I think it's a matter of time before you see them, but don't be surprised if you don't see Kyle Wright very much this year. Don't be surprised if it's a little while before you see Bryse Wilson. I still think there's a chance he's there on the 13th. Mark my words. If he's not there, oh well, but I'm calling it now. Bryse Wilson on the 13th. If not, maybe it's something better. Maybe it's Mike Soroka. Maybe it's, another prospect that we haven't seen yet. Tucker Davidson, Kyle Muller, someone of that nature. But I think Bryse Wilson has earned that spot and that shot next in line after Soroka. But if he doesn't come up in the month of April, I still think we see him before the Braves make it to a postseason this year.